I mean, we can talk a little bit about this. A couple years ago when you had your accident, I get a call from Ken Cohen. He's like, Doug's in trouble. And I'm like, what do you mean Doug's in trouble? Doug's Doug. Doug's never in trouble. Right? That's how I think of it. So, I mean, you were on a field trip.
Yeah.
And
So the way it happened was basically I was with my wife the week before, and Morena, one of our granddaughters, had a field trip or a trip with another person's birthday, whose dad was friends of Maria, and he had no help. And there were 4 kids going, and he was going to drive a boat over to Catalina. And we get off the boat, and he had driven the whole way, and we were fine. And then we get to the hotel, and we go into the hotel, and then he calls me to come back and drive the kids over to this one area where they could play.
on Catalina.
Yeah. So what happened was I basically jumped into a golf cart, and 2 of the kids ended up jumping off the golf cart, and one was going to fall. And I kind of came over and picked her up, and when it happened, I basically slipped off the road, hit my middle of the head on the cement.
Concrete embankment.
And what happened was I got up and I basically said, I'm good, let's go. And they looked at me, and apparently I was bleeding really bad. And he said, no, we're not going anywhere. Thank God we had a policeman right down the street who came up, saw what I was doing, and basically said, get this guy down. And they got me down, and then they flew me to UCLA to be able
UCLA Harbor Medical Center. Yeah.
In the meantime, they passed me out. And honestly, I probably passed out on myself. And what happened was they immediately gave me to the doctors, and the doctor says, he's got to go into surgery right now.
Yeah.
And they did brain surgery on me. Called my wife and told her that I was there, and the potential for me living is not real high.
Right.
The next 3 weeks, I was in a coma.
I have to be honest. When I heard, the first thing I wanted to do was come see you.
Yeah.
Because I was like, number one, I don't believe this, but I want to just see it. And then all of a sudden I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, do I really want to see it? The first person I called was Ed Gillis.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Ed Gillis was vacationing in Los Angeles. And Ed had heard, I told him about what Kenny had told me, that you were in they induced a coma and you had a major head injury and you slipped and like it was bleak. And Ed was like me, we weren't believing it. So I was like, Ed, is there any way, like, what are you doing on Monday? I'm going to fly in Sunday night. How about you and I go over to see him together? Because I didn't want to see it by myself. I really didn't. And so Ed was like, yeah, I'll pick you up at the hotel. We'll go over and see Dougie right now. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to be there on Monday. We literally each took a side of your bed and we stood over you and we tried talking to you because we knew you could hear us. We just knew we couldn't get any sort of reaction. But I left thinking, like, this might be the last time I'm going to see Doug. Ed, of course, being Ed, was like, yeah, Doug's gonna get through this. And Ed goes back, so I fly out the next morning. Ed goes back the next day and goes to see you the next day. And he's like, literally leaves the hospital, calls me, says, Danny, he's like, Doug's opening his eyes. I'm like, no. He's like, Doug's opening his eyes. He's, and one of the nurses there kind of pulled Ed aside and said, look, Ed, he's gonna make it. We see head injuries from gunshots and head trauma and car accidents and blah, 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 but this guy's different. This guy's gonna make it. And she was a little Filipino nurse in the CICU. I don't know her name. I don't know anything about her, but she literally was like, she was the one, and she's seen thousands probably. Wow. And she's like, nope, this one's different. Like, she knew something was different. And so Ed calls me up. He's like, yeah, it's like day and night. You would not believe what I just saw today. I'm like, dude, are you serious? He's like, yeah, I'm serious. Like, he's opening his eyes. He's trying to talk. He's like, maybe this miracle could really happen. And I'm not one that believes in miracles, but from what I saw to what I see today, it was a miracle. It was an absolute miracle.
I totally agree with you. And I don't think there's any other way that I could have gotten it without support from friends, support from people that, basically, had nothing to gain, and everything to lose, but basically helped me out. So
yeah, it was
think about that.
Damn, it was hard to see, really hard to see. But
so I'm back.
You're back, yeah. And I tell you, speaking of being back, is I can remember to this day, the first time my phone rang and the name Doug Wilkens came across my phone. This is after you got released. We were talking every single day before. I mean, I'm trying to start POVA, you're starting Beyond. Like, we're busy trying to get our businesses going, and then all of a sudden, boom, everything just comes to an end right there, you know. And it's like, I mean, it just kind of shows you how quickly things can just change in an instant. And I mean, you obviously worked your ass off to get back, physical therapy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, no, it's awesome. It's awesome to have you back in full strength. So, yeah.
Well, it's awesome to have friends like you.
Well, I appreciate it. So